Is it true? Is Etsy no more for the vintage seller and the original artist? Let's find out. Hey, I'm Pam Duthie, and I have been selling on Etsy for more than 11 years, and since 2014 my shop has seen year-on-year growth, so I share the tips, tricks and strategy that I use to get that kind of growth with you, so you don't have to make all the mistakes I did. So don't forget, subscribe and come back often for more videos. Right, let's get into this. I am hearing all the time that Etsy is just not for the original artist or the vintage seller. And my first reaction to that was, what? Of course it is. The ethos, the thing that Etsy was founded on, was for crafty original items. So let's have a look at what these complaints and comments are, and we'll go through them one at a time and see if we can debunk them or see if there's any fact to them. We just can't compete with the resellers. You need to have lots of listings in a shop to sell. Can't do free shipping. You can't have an individual item that has lots of sales. Just can't find competitive keyword terms. Can't do fast turnaround times. I sell well in real life, but it's just not happening online. Can't sell for enough money to actually make a living. So can't, number one, can't compete with the resellers. Now, it's true, over the years, more and more people are coming on the platform that are selling vast quantities of things. And in many ways this is allowed. If it's a supply shop, people can sell loads of the same item. But people get bogged down in thinking, we can't sell because there's these people selling in massive volumes. But actually, it doesn't affect us at all. In the main, you don't have to compete with them because you're aiming for different search terms, you're aiming for a different market. If someone's selling craft supplies, that doesn't affect your original art or your vintage in any way. They're turning up in a different search. And even if they are in the same search, if it's something that's kind of similar to you, just find a different search term that they haven't thought of. There is always going to be bigger, better sellers than you for some of the biggest search terms. Don't hang out there. Go to the little niche. Go to where your target market are. Don't aim for the massiveness. Don't try and compete with these people. And don't worry. Shoppers still know Etsy is a handmade place. It still advertises for that. It's still crafty people telling other crafty people this is an awesome place to go and buy gifts. So shoppers are still coming in their droves to Etsy as it's a handmade place. So we're not up against these other guys. Just make the best handmade items or source the best vintage items. Don't even worry about these other people. They're not your competition. You must have lots of listings to sell on Etsy. So this is something that's commonly said all the time. I've heard it right from the beginning. You've got to have 100 listings. You've got to have 200 listings. You've got to have 300 listings. And yeah, I was really sad to hear that because when I started out, some of my sculptures were taking 2 to 3 weeks to create just one. So to get 100 listings, that's years worth of work. Now, I've actually made a video going more in detail into that subject. Check it in the cards. But no, you don't necessarily need to have hundreds of listings. If your items are unique and beautiful, if the vintage things you source are something special that people can't find, or what you create is aspirational and beautiful, you can have a really good following of people that get excited about what you find or what you create. So basically they're hunting you down, they're following you, they're waiting to pounce whenever you put a listing up. So you could, I've seen shops that literally once a month or so launch a range. They tell their followers, they say, on this date, I'm launching this thing. Be here because when it's sold out, it's gone. And you get a buying frenzy. So you can have successful shops that only have items for one day of a month. Also, there's some arguments that a good conversion rate is a good thing. So if you only have a few listings that convert really well, if your listing is only up, gets a handful of views before it immediately sells out the door, that says good things to Etsy. That says this is a good shop. So you can still rank and still do well for only having a few listings. Now, it's true, more listings can give you more data. It can give you an idea of the keywords that are working for your customers, for your items. So it's not a bad thing sometimes, especially if you're a new shop, to work on building up as many listings as you can, being strategic about it, seeing how you can add listings without creating extra work. For example, if an item can be custom or personalized, you can make a similar thing, more than one of it, or you can find those vintage items in a kind of similar theme, then you could reuse a listing if that's relevant. Not if you're trying to con the system, but yeah, if you can make something that is, I'll make you something that looks kind of like this, with your own personalization on it, a custom listing as it were, then you can build up a lot more listings that way. You just can't do free shipping. Well, whoa. Actually, wait. Firstly, Etsy are only mentioning and recommending free shipping might get you a small boost in the search, and it might give you a small increase in your conversion rate if customers like it. They're not saying you have to do it. If all your competitors aren't able to do free shipping, then you're all in the same boat as each other, so it's not really a big deal. And if you're doing fantastically well already and making lots of sales, then you're doing fantastically well. That's all good metrics, and Etsy's not going to hide your shop just because you don't have free shipping. But actually, vintage or handmade goods could be easier to do free shipping on because our items tend to be on the higher price ticket, hopefully. So people are more expecting you to absorb the costs or to add the costs in of the shipping and spend a bit more on getting the item than they want to see a high shipping price. So it is possible to do that. I mean, totally different than a shop who's selling lots of small cheap items. It's harder for them because it's more obvious if a bag of jump rings was $1 with $3 shipping, and then suddenly it becomes $4 and all the other competition is $1, you're going to stand out in a negative way. But if you've got handmade items that are at a higher end ticket price anyway, actually customers think something's a bit more quality if it's not on the low end of price, if they're saving up and buying something made just for them. So this is something you can experiment with in your shop. Potentially try it on a few items, put up the price, and then offer free shipping. Or what you can do is offer free shipping over a certain amount. So if buying 2 of your products tends to come to, say, $95 and you offer free shipping for over $100, that might convince someone to put an extra little item in their cart just to get to that $100. You can't have an item with lots of sales and renewals. I know people think it's the be-all and end-all, having that one item that you can mass produce that sells and gets relisted lots of times. So Etsy looks at it and goes, this listing has a super high conversion rate, this listing sells lots and lots. If it's a one-of-a-kind item, that's a lot harder to do. However, Etsy does actually say that for one-of-a-kind listings, what they do is look for similar popular listings in your shop and in other shops. And this is a really interesting quote. If it's looking at similar activity from similar items in your shop, that is very clearly telling us that Etsy is going to give us a boost. Etsy is going to help us out if we're very niched in our shop, if we have several similar items. So if you're making one-of-a-kind items, make them all based on the one niche. Don't make lots of different things, a watercolor painting of a sunset and a knitted hat and lots of different things. Niche down. It don't have to be identical, but make several items hitting similar keyword phrases. And the same if you're a vintage antique seller. When you're looking for things, have a niche, have an idea in mind. Don't just say everything that's older than 40 years or whatever date you want. Think, quiche, think oriental, think what is it that you're into. And even more, if you niche down your shop, you can also niche down product ranges. When you're out, when you're searching for items to bring to people, have a look for things that go well with things that have done in the past. If you have, for example, cat ornaments in a certain style that have done particularly well, hunt out some more similar, not identical, that's going to be difficult, but hunt out similar things to what sold well in the past. And then Etsy will look and go, okay, so they've put up another cat listing. The last one did really well. Let's give that a boost. And also, it is possible to reuse listings, not in a gamey, dodgy way, but okay, look, you're not going to like me telling you this, but what's your reason for selling? If you want to make a living selling the things you love to make or things you love to buy, you have to go where the customers are. You have to listen to your customers. So this means that potentially we can't create whatever work of art we feel like every single day of the week. We can't create something completely different. We can't just buy exactly what catches our eye. We have to listen to our customers. So if a certain kind of work of art is doing well with your customers, make something again similar. A painting in the same size with the same colour scheme that's not absolutely identical but would hit the same keywords and is going to be the same price and is going to be similar in many ways. You can just renew that listing and change the image. For instance, my Splat Cat bookmark, I just made that once as a one-off, but people really liked it. So now that listing, although each one I make of these is individual, they vary slightly, I just keep renewing that listing and say the image is an example of what you get, but each one is handmade individually for you and there's going to be slight variations. So I'm making one of a kind individual art and I'm mass producing, as it were, without mass producing. The same if you're buying vintage, rather than just going and gathering the things that catch your eye. Look at what your customers have reacted well to in the past. Look out specific things that you think will do well. Think about what it is that the customer wants. And then you can reuse listings. You can use that boost that the people that are mass producing use. You just can't find competitive keywords because at the end of the day, those big shops are dominating that keyword search. Well, yeah, look harder. Keyword research is a difficult thing. It's a massive thing. That's why there are people across the internet that have their careers in SEO and keyword research. It's not easy, I promise you that. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it well and we'd have no competitive edge. So put the work in and you'll see some results. erank.com has the keyword tool and the keyword explorer. The keyword tool is free. Both of them can help you with finding good keywords to have a go at. And what I always recommend is, rather than creating or going out and finding that thing that you want to sell and then trying to find the keyword for it, do your keyword research beforehand. Try and find that gap in the market in something that's suitable for your niche, but find that gap in the market that people are searching for. Maybe it's a trend that's taking off, but not that many listings use that keyword, and then try and make an item or items based around that gap in the market that you've already found. That's the easiest and best way to do keyword research. Decide what it is you want to sell before you even make it. You can't do fast turnaround times. Now, this isn't a problem if you're vintage and you already have the item on hand, although there are your own issues with trying to keep a decent stock on hand, but this isn't so much a problem for vintage. But if you're hand making an item, it might take a bit of time to hand make the item. If you're doing a personalised or customised type item, it can take some time. So instead of the 1 to 2 to 4 days turnaround time, you might have much longer. And won't that put customers off? Well, actually, yeah, of course, some who are looking last minute to purchase that last minute thing, it might put them off. But if they found you, I've found in the past people have contacted me looking for a certain event. And if I get back to them and say that I really can't promise to do that, next time they just come back earlier. Okay, I missed that sale then, but I've got a repeat customer in the future. And that's the thing, if you communicate honestly with your customers, they can actually be more appreciative. If they have had to wait, if they've had to communicate with you, work with you, put some effort into this listing, this item that you're creating for them, then they're actually going to love it that bit extra. So just so long as you're honest and communicate with your customers what's going on, they're happy to wait. My shipping times just now are 4 to 6 weeks. I thought that would put people off entirely, but it hasn't at all, just so long as they know how long it's going to take. Look, my items sell well in real life, but they're just not selling online. One thing, fantastic, if your items sell really well in real life, then you know that the items you get are loved by people when they see them. So that's great. That gives you a boost. That tells you you're on the right track. Now, they're not selling so well online, so I'm going to say there's a couple of things you can do to improve your listing. Photographs. I know, you hate hearing that. You've got to keep on trying to make your photographs better, because that's all people can see. They can't pick up your item, touch it, get a good look at it. So have some awesome pictures so they can really see and fall in love with what your item is. And also check your descriptions. Make sure your description answers the questions people have, is honest about your item, but at the same time is interesting about it. Again, make people fall in love. They're going to buy if they fall in love, or more likely to buy. And finally as well, check your SEO. If you're aiming for keyword terms that aren't really what your item is, then people might see it in a search and go, that's pretty, but it's not what I wanted. So make sure what you're telling Etsy your item is what, when a customer searches, is what they're expecting to see. And also have an honest look. Search for that search term, look on that page, look at all the other items and see how your item stacks up. If you're not already ranking, you can use some kind of photo editing software or something to pop your item, take the picture of your item and superimpose it as if it was ranking on the page, and have a look and see, does your item actually stand out, or is it bland, or is it worse, is it there? So check and see if people find you, are they going to like your item? You just can't earn enough with vintage or art. Now the thing is, we don't have to be involved in a race to the bottom. The temptation is always, if you don't sell, oh, you've got to put items on sale, you've got to make them cheaper, the items are too expensive. But that's not necessarily what people want. Actually, if an item is a little bit more expensive, they might think it's better quality than something that's super cheap. Now, if you're selling supplies or something, then people might want the cheapest they can get at the good quality. But if your item is completely unique, then people don't mind having to save up for a little bit to get the very exact thing that they want. People value what they have to work for. So if you've spent a lot of time creating this item, or you've spent time going and sourcing this item, something wonderful that's been kept through the decades, kept nice and safe, and you sell these things at a rock bottom price, people aren't going to care for them. They're going to knock that ornament off the shelf. They're going to drop it down the back of the sofa. They're not going to care for it all that much. So do you actually want to beat yourself up working away for hours for a complete stranger that you've never met who's paying you less than minimum wage? So it's better to possibly sell a few less items for a bit more money than it is to break yourself trying to create or find so many listings just to stack them high and sell them cheap. And here's the hard truth as well. Perhaps it is the wrong items. It happens. There are some categories that people just aren't going to be making a good living on because people just don't pay so much for them. For example, if you've been hand making something, but there's now a machine, there's a process that can mass produce this at better quality than a human can, then quite often I'm afraid that hand making becomes obsolete. That's what's happened across the ages. That's what happens. But also sometimes if you move to more luxury items of the thing that you were making, use more luxurious materials. One thing I see this a lot in is, for example, knitwear shops. Cheap wool to make the same old hats and gloves that everyone else is making. You're in a race to the bottom of the price. luxury materials that cost a little bit more to buy, created in different fashions, things that are eye-catching, something totally different, they can sell for quite a bit of a larger markup, so you could make a living from that. But the simple thing is, it's not easy to sell online. It takes work. Like I said before, if these kind of things were easy, everyone would be able to do it, and if everyone was doing it easily, then the competition would grow and it would become difficult again. It's got to be difficult. It takes time to build up, it takes time to learn. So I know it would be a lovely idea if we were one of those shops that opened up and immediately sold more than we could create. Immediately you're in the six-figure salaries. But for most of us, that's just not the case. It takes time to build up to understand all you need to do, to understand and get better at SEO and photography and get better at making your items. But the good thing is, most of the people who start don't realise that. They think it's going to be easy and they drop out. So if we stick with it, we're ahead of the race. Hope that helped. Don't forget, click on my wee face to subscribe, check out the other videos and come back often. Thank you so much.